Thank you, Kirsten. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is there's so much confusion and so much disinformation and misinformation being put out about what Nesara and Gesara are.
You got to blow up the screen. Can you? Is that the largest you can make it?
That's as big as I can. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
So this was put together by a person, really brilliant person in my Australia group, Martin Heel, and as well as contributions from other members of the Australian Zoom group that my Australian coordinator put together. So Nesara stands for National Economic Security and Recovery Act. That's for the U.S. only. Gesara is the Global Economic Security and Recovery Act.
Can I say something now? Okay. There is a fake one that's the National Economic Stabilization Act that was put out by the Bushes.
Yeah. Correct. Mm-hmm. That's to derail and obfuscate this and make it so you're not understanding things again.
Okay.
So Nesara will first happen in the U.S., followed by other countries. The Nesara principles are common law to be implemented in divorce and establishment of peace. In other words, under Gesara, each country will have to agree to not be waging war and establish peace, as well as all of the following: private citizen financial privacy from their governments, currency backed by precious metals, that's to be gold, silver, and platinum. The QFS, and I'll explain what QFS stands for, Quantum Financial System. I'll explain that in more detail later on, will be used for financial transactions and all financial and economic instruments. QFS will also be used for election integrity, and that will be now known as the QVS, Quantum Voting System. Forgiveness of private debt, elimination of income tax and other government taxes, and replace this with a 14% consumption tax on non-essential items. That would be items that are not things like medical, pharmaceutical, things that people need, etc. And that's on new items only. So it wouldn't, if it's a used item, would include that would not be taxed. Return of government taxes and fines, etc., to the people. Release of medical treatments and technologies that are currently classified and hidden from the public. That's such things as the med beds. Then also the unlimited funds for community, environmental, and sustainable projects. And people ask, how unlimited? Well, when you're not funding wars all over the globe, for one thing, that releases a lot of funds. And then also all of the gold will be repatriated throughout the world that was located and found in the dome under the Vatican. That's 1,500 miles of gold bullion that went from the Vatican to Jerusalem in that dome, as well as underneath the Bank of London and underneath the palace in England. So next is also what Gesara means for the world. Elimination and the burden of debt so that people no longer have to work 40 hours a week just to survive. Allows people to pursue careers that follow their passions, their creativity, and get involved with projects that benefit the community, environment, and the people around them. Gives everyone the same opportunities. No one will be limited by race, gender, political views, country of birth, etc. Stable currencies and election integrity. Cures for terminal diseases, and cheap and easy treatments for conditions and diseases. Free energy, alternative technologies, and new forms of transport and ways of doing things. So they're going to release the patents, as remember above. They're going to release hidden technologies. That'll be free energy and anti-gravity. So it changes the transportation. And I'll talk about all this a little bit later. Companies and projects will focus on the community, environment, and social impacts instead of company profits and shareholder returns. Minimal government monitoring of citizens and their financial activity. Removes the threat of potential war and allows everyone to cooperate harmoniously. So thanks to a dedicated woman who's codenamed Dove, Nesara did not pass into oblivion. And that's the link for that. You can go to this link here, which is pathwaytoascension.wordpress.com. She imposed a very strict gag order upon it. Dove circulated a daily update on Nesara. As a result, Nesara has grown from a national law enacted to correct wrongs perpetrated on the American people by the banking industry, government, and mega corporations and the media to set principles desired throughout the planet. So it's gone from a U.S. only to a worldwide system. Nesara is now a universal structure known as Gesara, within which improvements in every nation will take place. A strong contributing factor to worldwide knowledge of Nesara is that of more than 40 demonstrations now called Nesara Take Action Team, or NTAT, members residing throughout Europe. These demonstrations took place in Peace Palace in The Hague, in Netherlands, or The Hague, however you pronounce that, also called the World Court. And there's a link to that again on that pathwaytoascension.com. And then the GCRRV from Judy Byington, you can go look at her continuing updates. As per various updates, she's released the gold asset-backed currency, including the quantum financial system. She's released all kinds of updates. I'll just skip that. That's the majority of things. Also, part of this is that the new monies will not have satanic symbols on them or logos of the Democratic National Convention or Democratic Party, because those are all satanic as well. And the old SWIFT system will be replaced by the QFS, or the quantum financial system. Nesara is an offshoot of the 14th Amendment in the American Constitution. President Clinton signed Nesara at actually gunpoint by a bunch of Marines that were holding him, and that was put forward and written up by farmers that were losing their farms due to all the bank foreclosures and things and the weather warfare that was being done, so they couldn't get crops and pay for their mortgages. It was signed into law at 10 a.m. by Bill Clinton on 11 September of 2001. And where this was stored was in the Twin Towers. So that's a big reason for 911. Bush Sr. ordered the demolition of the Trade Tower centers to stop the international banking computers that were on floors 1 and 2 of the North Tower from initiating, in other words, was set to already be initiated into the U.S. new Treasury bank system. Supported by, it was stopped by many people from becoming wealthy and having power, so that their power, the cabal's power, would be compromised. So Chief Justice John Roberts is shared with this Bush deceit to seal the deal. And John Roberts worked with Bush Sr. to steal $9.1 trillion from the U.S. Treasury funds for Nesara. A lot of that is what goes into creating all the dumps where they do all the things with the little ones that I've been telling about for 2 years now. Justice John Roberts was also caught transferring $3 trillion to his own personal bank account, $10 trillion to Cheney, Bush, Clinton, and McCain. These treasonous traitors of Congress will have a one-way ticket to Gitmo. So part of the Nesara is also holding them accountable, and the tribunals, which I've been talking about for 2 years.
I want to correct one thing. Okay,
yes, go ahead.
I always heard it was 13 trillion. You just said 3 trillion to him and 10 trillion to Cheney, Bush, and Clinton, and McCain. So that would be 13 trillion, not 9.1 trillion, right?
You have 13 trillion there, an additional 9.1 to his own personal account. So you have, 3 trillion to his personal account, 10 trillion to these people,
right?
And 9.1 he also stole as well. So you have, it's actually a total of 23 trillion.
Holy moly! Missing. Where is the money?
A lot of it built dumps. A lot of it enriched Roberts beyond belief, as well as the Bush family, the Clinton family, and the McCain families, and Cheney. So those 1, 2, 3, 4 families got 10 trillion, or about 2.5 trillion each. Then Roberts himself got 3 trillion.
Plus
Then another, 9.1 went directly to Bush Senior.
Oh.
Okay, so that's 13 plus 9.1. So that's 22.1. And then there's another 0.9 that went they don't know where it went.
Are we getting all that money back, or is it gone?
They have already seized a lot from the Clintons and McCain when he was given lethal injection.
Right.
And when the big indictment, which I'm currently being told will be in March, that will further indict them and demand, of course, if you're found guilty for trafficking in humans as per the executive order that Trump signed into law, then all of your properties will be seized. So that would include the Cheney, the Bush, the Clinton, the McCain again, and as well as Chief Justice
Roberts.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, definitely. So, and this was initially formed by fighting farmers, as I said, that were defrauded by the IRS and the banking system. So Nesara will forgive all debts, credit cards, mortgages, and other bank debts due to illegal bank activities. Such legal debts are things like continually compounding interest, which is illegal. Usury debt, in other words, where you go get a loan, say for $1 million, and it's a 10% interest, you would expect on $1 million to pay $100,000 at 10%, but you wind up paying $5 million interest because the interest is compounded over a 30-year time frame over and over on itself.
Okay, so someone we know that attacks us says to go out and get a loan. That loan might not have to worry about paying it off or not paying off your mortgage. That might not be paid off because it's not a fraudulent loan. So, whatever she's saying is probably not the truth. Don't go out and not pay off your mortgage and not pay off your loans.
Right. And, thank you for bringing that up. People need to continue doing and not change how they've been doing things. Not go out, take crazy loans and bring up your credit cards because you think it's going to go away. Right. Continue to behave financially as you have been until this is changed into law, because they will note that kind of things. Everything is being tracked right now by the quantum financial system, is tracking everything. And I'll explain what the quantum financial system cannot be hacked. So let me go into what quantum financial system is. First of all, and I'll go over this again later, you'll see it's not AI. Quantum financial system is a quantum computer system that records every economic and financial transaction, every mint of every coin, every print of every treasury-backed note, every type of financial action is recorded as a quantum event in the computer. So when that takes place in space-time, wherever it takes place, everything is absolutely unique. And so the computer records the quantum signature of that event, like the minting of a gold coin, even if one's minted in the mint, right behind it from the same vat of gold and the same print, that is not exactly the same time. The computer records the same exact location, but it's slightly different. It's not actually the same exact location because there's been movement. And so through time. And so everything is recorded and it is absolutely unique, like every snowflake is unique. So it records everything and it can't then then it's done out through the XRP or the Ripple system. So it ripples to hundreds of servers. All that event registered ripples to hundreds of servers all over the world, as well as even smaller computer systems. So that's recorded all over the world. You can't hack a system like that. So it also abolishes, as I said, the income tax. And the IRS will be a collection agency for the flat 14% tax that I spoke of before on non-essential sales items. It returns us to true constitutional law under the Constitution for these United States, for America, the original Constitution, not the Constitution of the United States of America, which is U.S. incorporated. Okay? And so the courts will be returned to doing legal matters, and this includes retraining of judges and lawyers. A judge, when you're going up, you're supposed to be, you go into court, you're supposed to be told what you're being tried in violation of, and that what you're being taken to court for is a constitutional violation. If the law that you're being taken is found to be unconstitutional, then that doesn't apply to you, and they haven't been doing that. It's also to restore financial privacy. It installs a new treasury bank system that will be in line with the Constitution. This is part of the reset. Eliminates the Federal Reserve, that is a privately held corporation by the elite cabal, and that's 52% of that is the Rothschild family. The other 48% was 24% to the Carnegies and 24% to the Rockefellers that own the blue chip stock for the Federal Reserve, which is a corporation. It's not a reserve, and it's not federal, as in part of the U.S. federal government. Nesara would pay out American citizens $100,000 for 11 years. And that will be evaluated now as looking at each person. And once they got into the Vatican, they found exactly how much has been taken from every single person and their father, their mother, all the way back for many, many, many generations, as well as states, cities, countries, provinces, governments, etc. So this right here is now being reevaluated.
Yeah, because the Vatican kept very good, clear records.
Yeah, they're greedy, and they love to gloat, the cabal. They kept absolute meticulous records of where all that gold for 1,500 miles came from. So now that'll allow for very fair reapportionment. So this will change. And then it also increased benefits for senior citizens. It ceases all aggressive military actions worldwide. And that's part of the Abraham Accord. It initiates the first phase of prosperity and distributes vast amounts of wealth. Enormous amounts of money will be released for humanitarian purposes. And that's one of the big things about Nesara, and I'll go into that, as well as the release of new technologies and alternative energy, such as the free energy patent that was used in the TR3B, that's patented under Salvatore Pais. You can look that up in the U.S. Patent Office. That's the power supply for the TR3B. It develops 1 trillion watts of power from the quantum vacuum, and that is completely free energy. It's a operational free patent, which means it's operational. The blueprints for that mean operational means it's already been made. It's not just a blueprint, it's operational. And free means that there's no royalties having to be paid to Salvatore Pais, the patent holder. 6,000 other patents that have been suppressed from mankind, from free energy, anti-gravity, and healing, such as the medbeds that I talked about, will all be released. The cures for many diseases have stemmed from man-made viruses, bacteria, etc., and that will cease to exist once Nesara and Gesara is done worldwide. So disregard that. Nesara sanctions. Let's do this. I think I can do this. Can I do that? No, I can't do that. Okay. Nesara sanctions are implemented for eliminating the Fed. Payroll taxes eliminated, increases benefits to senior citizens, just to bottom line everything, ceases aggressions worldwide, establishes peace throughout the world, releases unprecedented enormous amounts of money for humanitarian purposes, cancels credit card mortgage and illegal debts, in other words, illegal usury debts. Now puts the U.S. Treasury on a gold, silver, and platinum rainbow currency, enables the release of 6,000 patents, monitors elections as well as illegal election activities and special interest groups, which will then be eliminated through that monitoring. Initiates the U.S. Treasury banking system in alignment with constitutional law, abolishes the IRS. So that's the bottom line of Nesara. So let me explain this. It's not going to be just like go home and be wealthy. and watch TV all day and eat popcorn and, you know, stuff yourself and have a great time, and you don't have to work anymore, there's going to be immense amounts of work. Realize that if you release all of these patents that's being talked about here, that free energy, so we're talking no more use of oil, all of this oil systems will have to be capped off. All of the free energy means all of the power systems, the nuclear power plants, the other power plants, the power, the lines, the local substations, all that's not needed. All that needs to be recycled, taken down, all that metal, cars converted over to internal combustion using anti-gravity. So now you don't need highways. You can put in green belts, which will cool cities down so they're not immense heat sinks. So you can, all those roads need to be taken up, so you don't need to maintain roads. You can have greenways and grass belts, or, you know, in a desert area, you could just have a gravel, sandy, you know, bottom, so that the thing, it'll be like a hover car. There'll even be vehicles for, you know, within the nation that can go up and do higher, you know, and routed. And so all these routing systems to route vehicles that are flying, you'll have flying paths like you saw in Back to the Future, all of these things. So there's a lot of work to retool our entire economy, like what we saw when the internal combustion engine came. And in a very short period, we went from the horse and buggy to the automobile. It's the same thing again, but way more vast, because you're not just talking about revamping our entire power grid and essentially completely getting rid of it, where they come to each local house, and, you know, a shoebox is the size of this 1 trillion watt generator. So every house could have something about a little free energy device the size of the head of a pin that would power your entire house. You wouldn't lose power. And even, you know, little tiny devices like your phone and all that would have free energy. So it completely redoes everything. It also comes out with the new 6G system based on the Zeno effect, like I did on Kirsten's show before when I talked about Go Feifei. That then means all the satellites can be taken down. All these communication satellites don't need to be used. All the phones need to be retooled. The big pharmacy goes away, because now we have a system that's dealing with natural healing and the med beds and all that. So now you don't need big pharma and all this other stuff. You can see why the global cabal didn't want this, because it's massive, but it also requires all of us to go learn new skills, new technologies, new things, you know, like linemen now, instead of going and doing lines, we'll be taking lines down, taking all that metal, massive recycling, all this strip mining and all this stuff won't be needed anymore, because you have all massive amounts of material worldwide. That's why Tesla was trying to do this in the first place. He said, you're going to wire the entire planet? And he was going to do this way back in 1903. He had the free energy, he had the anti-gravity, they had all of that in 1903. And that was all suppressed. So all of that's coming out. It's, you know, going to require everybody pitching in, doing a lot of work. And it ceases all aggressive military actions. That's also including military actions within your country against the populace. And that includes, you know, essentially, we've actually had a military state in which our police force, our sheriffs have been participating in things against children. And that's going to stop too, because that is not constitutional. And under the executive order, that carries a death sentence. So all of that's going to be, and that's why they're taking out the DOMs. They're just taking them out, because you can't fix what's down there. That needs to be brought up into the light. So that can't be hidden underground anymore. So that, and you don't need all those systems under there. And so because you have the ability to travel quickly with anti-gravity all over the world, you don't need maglevs and all this stuff under the earth that makes, you know, the earth more, the Earth's crust more unstable. All these tunnels and all these DOMs and all of this isn't needed. So all of that, I mean, there's so much massive work to do with all this. It's not going to be just go out in the street and rejoice. Yeah, we can rejoice, and, you know, we don't have to work like a dog just to pay the rent and the utility bills. Those all go away. But at the same time, we're going to require going back to school and learning all of these new technologies, and our whole history is going to be rewritten. All that's coming out. All of our that will be all the textbooks in school, and the way we teach our children, which was all via the cabal. All that's going to be teachers are going to be needed to retrain of how they teach children, so they're not just spitting out facts that are nonsense. They're just not little like digital machines that record information and spit it back out, and that's the test if you pass and you learn something. You're not learning things, but a bunch of facts and figures that aren't true. So now it's going to be teaching children to have these skills so they can get out and make a better world, and for themselves and their children and the whole world. So it's going to be a complete redo of our world. Our world's going to completely change. It's going to take a complete new mindset where children are treated as children and honored and raised correctly, and all this abusive situations is going to stop and come to an end, and all that needs to be looked at. And they need to look at all the CPS systems all over the entire country and in every country on earth, because that's all part of the problem too. And 98% of everywhere you go, they're participating, as well as all the churches. That's deep in many of the churches as well. So it's going to require us all to become very respectful, considerate to each other, and take responsibility for bringing this all in. So that's basically what I had to say. Thank